have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
This is Global Morning. It's a delight to have you join us here on Global Television. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe, live in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. It's a Friday, the end of the work week as we know it, and a great weekend is apparently upon us. We want to believe that your day is off to a great start with so much of promise right in front of you. But whatever you do, just to ensure you make it the most than it can be. But then on our end, we want to bring you very topical and incisive conversations around issues of concern to not just Global Television, but Nigeria and indeed Nigerians. In the last couple of days, in the course of this current week, a lot has happened. One of the big highlights has been the commemoration of the Eid al-Maulud, and we saw Nigerians across board, end to end, calling for unity of purpose, calling for harmony, calling for practical show of love, calling for patriotism. But it's also high time we started as Nigerians to walk the talk. We've seen so much of talk and talking, that we want to see people who walk the talk, whether you're in public office or you're just a private citizen minding your business, as it were. That is where we ought to have been long ago, but as they say, better late than never. We also want to talk about the issue of labor and its agitation. In the last couple of weeks, especially for the most parts in the lifetime of this administration, since May 29 when he took over power, there has been this interface between the government of President Bola Tinubu and the organized labor, particularly as an aftermath of the suspension, or some people say removal, of payment of fuel subsidy. Labor on its part says we are asking that government should put palliatives in place in such a way that the pains Nigerians go through following the removal of fuel subsidy payments will be alleviated. Government, on the other hand, says two things here. The first is we do not have money to pay subsidies going forward. Therefore, we had to suspend it. And Labour seems to understand that narrative. And government further says we are working hard, very hard, to ensure that measures are put in place, investments are made in critical sectors to ensure that this removal of the payment of subsidy doesn't bite any harder than it naturally should be. As of today, we know for a fact that Labour is not buying any of that. If anything, Labour is not impressed with what the government is doing. But on the government end, there are people who say, let's cut the Bola Tinubu government some slack here. One, based on their argument, this is a government that has been in power for just a few months. And they add to that, saying the government picked this economy, so to speak, from a very bad place. If anything, the government should be commended for the frantic moves it has made in this last few months, all aimed at ensuring that the economy gets out of the woods. And they point out things like some executive orders that have been signed by President Bola Tinubu that talk about some of the reforms that have been introduced, whether it's in the area of fiscal or monetary policies. They even talk about, quite practically, the appointment of a new team of leaders for the CBN, starting with the governor himself, Dr. Olayemi Kasodo, and the other 4 deputy governors. And then they point to other areas in terms of measures being put in place to fight the monster called corruption, and then investments being made in defense, just to ensure that insurgency, banditry, and all other forms of crime are fought to a standstill. But the question is, how do we, everyday Nigerians, make a sense out of this development, because this becomes even more concerning given that Labour has said on the 3rd of October, which is just next Tuesday, they are going on what they call indefinite strike. In fact, just yesterday, they tagged it the mother of all strikes. Whatever that means, the government is saying that Labour should hold its horses because President Bola Tinubu is not sleeping on them, neither is he sleeping on the welfare of Nigerians at large. But one thing is sure, on the 1st of October, that happens to be Sunday, by the way, just 2 days away, as it's traditional, President Bola Tinubu will address the nation. The question is, will issues around the demands of labor feature, whether prominently or in passing, in his address to Nigerians? We'll wait to find out. But we're also concerned about state of security, especially as it stands today in the FCT. Residents are worried. Security agencies are working around the clock to ensure that it is caused to its barest. One of them, I mean, when you look at the strands in the insecurity wahala, as they call it, you realize that the one chance element seems to be becoming sort of more concerning by the day. Just when you think it has become a thing of the past, then you start hearing very nasty stories of people's experiences in the hands of these criminals who parade themselves as commercial drivers. We have a report put together by our partner correspondent Abdullahi Danjuma, where he takes an incisive and in-depth look at this phenomena and what the implications are.
An apparently peaceful traffic situation can turn into a nightmarish experience with the activities of the popular but ignoble criminals called One Chance. They are violent criminals who disguise as either commercial drivers or as passengers. The trick is to shout, one chance, giving the impression that the vehicle needs only one passenger to move. But jump in and you jump into a pile of miseries. Kabiru Adamu is a security consultant and confirms that this pattern of crime has taken an alarming dimension.
It is a common occurrence in most city centers. In Abuja, as an example, it's very difficult for you to go to any space where there are a couple of persons ranging from 3 up until 10 that you will not find at least 1 to 2 to 3 persons that have not been victims of One Chance, as long as the persons are using commercial vehicles.
So I entered the cab, hailing Papi.
Chidinma is a young mother. She had a terrible and pathetic experience in the hands of the criminals.
Chidinma was dropped by her sister right about here at around 8 o'clock in the evening. A Mazda car driven by a man and one other passenger at the back pulled over and hastily picked her. Destination, Mpape. But the journey was doomed because a sort of horrible thing started happening at the inception of the trip.
Merely I entered. The passenger by my left, was behaving as if he was collecting his balance from the driver. So I felt comfortable. I guess they did that so that I wouldn't have to notice what was going to go on. So immediately after he collected that balance, the next thing he did was to stretch his hands towards my side, and here was on my neck, while here was trying to stop me from opening the door by my right. So as I tried to open the door by my right, they were shouting, you better cooperate. You know, go cooperate, but you won't die. You won't die this night. She said, go feel come out from this car. This is go feel come out. You know, go feel come out from this car. They were beating me. The first person that hit me was the man in front. So he punched me with, I don't know whether it was a ring on his finger or a rod. Mainly he punched me. That was when here, the blood started oozing from here. So I was in the pool drinking my blood. Then they now told me, lie down. Okay, lie down. No, go lie down, ba. So I was struggling. They've collected my stuffs. They've collected my bags at that time. I didn't have my bag with me. So they were telling me, no, go lie down, ba. So I thought they wanted to rape me as they were telling me to lie down on the floor of the car. So as I tried to lie down on that floor, the one by my side too now slapped me, and he tried to strangle me too. That was where this marks came out for. So he was struggling me and telling me, no, you go die this night. Maybe you no want cooperate. You go die this night. You go die this night.
Chidinma was lucky to escape alive because she did not fit the correct profile of the perfect victim the criminals were searching for their sinister intentions.
By the time they were done beating me, it wasn't like that, madam, you know what you go do now? You go cut your breast. I said, okay, sir. He now said, do you have kids? I said, yes, I have kids. He just kept quiet. The next thing I saw was that he told me, okay, oh yeah, get up.
Alone in the night.
This young lady was also lucky because she survived and agreed to share her experience with us.
I've been attacked in this beggar before. I was hit from behind. My phones and everything were collected. And it took me years to be able to stand in beggar and get a car and pick up a cab.
In a daring display of impunity, most of the criminals move around with POS machines for ease of stealing money out of the bank accounts of their victims. Security experts explain that this is very possible, especially with the emergence of new financial outfits who ignore the vigorous security check on customers before opening customer accounts.
A lot of the instances that we've monitored, they actually use the financial systems. Now, the reason for this is commonplace. Number one, we do not have a national database for individuals, Nigerians actually. And more importantly, even the banking system has not put in place infrastructure to reduce the possibility of this from happening. And then secondly, where it happens, to trace the perpetrators, arrest them, and then prevent further crime.
Abuja is Nigeria's seat of government. It is also a bubbling cosmopolitan city that attracts people from every part of Nigeria and even abroad who come mostly in search of economic opportunities. But like many emerging cities facing the challenges of growth, crime has become a major issue. The June 2023 edition of Nigeria Security Report for Beacon Intel, a security consulting firm, shows an increase in crime in not just Abuja but other major Nigerian cities. The FCT Police Command says it is doing its best to fight crime in the territory in order to protect the security and welfare of citizens.
We have created a tactical squad called Anti-One Chance, which they have been charged with the responsibility of these one chance activities to wipe away in conjunction with the DPOs as well. The DPOs are doing on the divisional level, and this squad that I mentioned, Anti-One Chance, has been deployed also to each division.
The FCT Police Public Relations Officer says the police needs the cooperation of the victims and other citizens in order to tackle this despicable crime called one chance.
Sometimes these modus, they change their modus. Though we've identified the modus they are using, but when they know we identify them, they also change their modus. So when if you find yourself as a victim, it's only wise and advisable that you report these incidences to the security agencies.
I actually did not believe that they could do anything about it. That was why I didn't report to them.
Our law enforcement agents that do not see this crime as a major crime. We've been in instances where we've monitored this development on behalf of our clients. We will report the cases by providing the telephone numbers that were used in the crime, the account numbers that were used in the crime. The response you get from the law enforcement is that they have bigger challenges. And this is the effort they will use in stopping this is not worth the benefit.
Victims survive and injuries are treated, but the emotional scar takes a very long time to heal.
It took me months or if not years to actually recover. And psychologically, everything around me now, even if I enter a cab now, I will start to be conscious of where I am because of everybody around me is a suspect.
The one that was repeatedly beating me, I didn't see the one in the front, his face, but the one at the back, I kind of saw his face. So when I see someone that looks like that person, I'll be like, are you sure it's not this man that beat me that night?
Kabiru Adamu says commuters should avoid flagging vehicles along the road. Instead, approved and designated motor parks should be used. Anjum Abdullahi.
Thank you for staying with us, everyone. Danjuma Abdullahi, partner correspondent there, just giving us insights into how this bunch of criminals operates, particularly within the FCT. Much more is expected from security agencies, as well as volunteering of information from both victims and those who have vital intel as to how these syndicates operates, particularly across the nation's capital. We're going to talk about this a little, and then we'll jump right into our main discussion on the program today. I'm joined by James Ugochukwu. He's election analyst and good governance advocate. Thank you, James, for deciding to do this with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Incidentally, you and I just saw that report by Danjuma Abdullahi, and you were also expressing very serious concerns as to this development. You want to react to that quickly?
I think it's something that we need to start asking FCT police command what they are doing about this, because it's becoming one event too many. A colleague of mine fell victim of this particular one chance operation on Tuesday here.
Just this week?
Yeah, this week here, on Tuesday here. And of course, it's so disheartening that all the effort we made to get these people tracked were futility. We reported to the police station in, I think, Nyanya police station, the police station near the market there. You know, the colleague that went there, they get the person to write a statement. After writing a statement and collecting 1,000 from the person, they said that this place is, that where the event happened or the incident happened is not within their jurisdiction. So the question we're asking is there coordination in the FCT police operation? And the other thing is that we are seeing the influx of people into FCT, and this should raise the security alert of the FCT police command, because the way the police command works here is that all police checkpoints in FCTs are predictable. So it's where you saw them yesterday that you are going to see them tomorrow. So these criminals, they know how to navigate the town without getting to police checkpoint. So the police command should change their operation in such a way that they should engage in patrol. Let them be patrolling instead of staying in one place. Because if police is patrolling and they saw suspicious movement in inside a vehicle, they'll be able to flag them down and, of course, apprehend them. The other thing is that beggar linked to several express, the Kuba Expressway, the airport road, and all that. So it's not out of place for the police to mount roadblock along this expressway for security reasons. Because when they pick somebody from that beggar, the next thing that they will divert to Kuba Road. Like my colleague was diverted to that Kuba Road. And of course, the tracking we did with DSS showed where their movement from Tipa Garage to, from Nikon Junction to Tipa Garage. The next place they were tracking them was near Dawaki, Kuba Road. You know, so, and along all these places, there are no police checkpoints. So even though it's express, we are looking at human lives, we are looking at security. It can be anybody. It's me today, it can be anybody tomorrow. So it's not something that we should be monkeying about. So the FCT Police Command need to sit up seriously and come up with a new strategy of apprehending this criminal. The thing about this now is that some of these criminals don't even cover their face. In fact, when one spoke with me, he said that there's nothing police or army can do to them, that they are not even covering their faces, that they are not from this town, that they can do anything and get away with it. He was bragging that way.
On the phone?
I'm telling you, on the phone. So the police command should try to work with victims to carry out sting operation and apprehend all these criminals that are making the city very unbearable for us. Because we are looking at capital of a city. Just imagine a foreigners getting into the country and they had this kind of experience about Nigeria. What are you going to say? This is capital city and it should be protected maximally.
You know, I'm a bit consoled. I guess several other Nigerians feel the same way, given what the Minister of the FCT said on the 21st of August, when they got sworn in. I mean, he was addressing the president that very day of the inauguration, and he talked about how that he understands the enormity of security concerns across the FCT, and he mentioned some of the elements involved, issues around conspiracy and so on and so forth. And he did promise that the security agencies, from the police to the NSCDC and the others, will get all the tools, all the resources, all the funding, all the support that they need. But also, he warned that the FCT must get value for such investment. But we're just going to leave it there now. Let's jump right to our discussion for this morning, which focuses on the state of the economy in light of the agitation by labor and the implications of this, if you like, culture of strikes that we have now seen in our nation. Labour has said, come 3rd of October, we are going on strike. We're shutting down the nation. They've called it the mother of all strikes. Is there anything new in that, really?
Well, what is new there is that let's see if the strike is going to take place. Because over time now, Labour has not demonstrated that they can push in their demand or push through their demand. So we won't be surprised that on the 1st or 2nd now, they say they've called off the strike. So the strike is something that shouldn't be, in the sense that we are looking at something that can be remedied. You know, all the demands they are making, both short-term and long-term demand. So a sensible government should be able to look at all this demand and don't allow the whole thing to snowball into strike. It's not good for our democracy. And of course, you cannot stop Labour from going on strike, because they've issued this warning several times. They've had several meetings with the government, and the government doesn't seem to be even budging. The country is bubbling with serious strife. People are suffering seriously, and that is the demand that Labour is putting on the table, that the government should do something about it. So we are looking at the government doing what they need to do before then, and not just giving promissory notes. They should be able to start walking their talk. What are the Labour demanding? Increase on the minimum wage, which for me is still not the solution, because no matter how much you increase, the inflation will still swallow the value. Right. The one that stands out for me is the fixing of the refinery and all that, because everything we are doing, it revolves around the petroleum sector. So we cannot be living in a country where we have our crude oil, we are taking it to another country, and they are refining it and bringing a substandard product. The
government has said at least one refinery will be up and running by December. Is that not substantial?
We've been hearing that story since. We are looking at the government has started now. They've been sworn in. Everybody's in place. In fact, we're choosing our cabinet and everything. Last time we came here, we were talking about the picking of the ministers and all that. But we have all those ones now. So they should stop talking as if we are still campaigning for election.
This is time for governance.
Yeah, this is time for governance. This is time for delivering the goods. One refinery working before December, I don't call that an achievement. We have 4 refineries. And the government in the past put these refineries in place. They were working optimally in the past. So what does it take just to fix this refinery to work? For the past 30 years now, this refinery has been moribund. And we look at people that are going to the same refinery, working every day and collecting salary from hard-earned money of taxpayers. So the one refinery is not just enough. We need at least 3 of the 4 refineries to be working. And the government should even be looking at, like I said earlier before, we have people that have been applying for modular refinery licenses. They should give these people licenses, let them start refining our petroleum, so that we don't depend on other countries for this. Because now we are looking at a product that we have. We have the crude oil, Brent crude for that matter, one of the best in the world.
In the world, right.
Then the question is, how should a right-thinking government or people be exporting the crude oil and bringing only just few of the product, a lot of byproducts of
that don't come back here.
That don't come back here. So we are not using economic law of comparative advantage. Because we are using that particular law, we should be looking at producing what we can, and of course selling the product, because we have the facility to do that, and we have the market. The whole West African market is enough for us to be exporting our products, and we'll make our money. But what we are doing is the reverse. We sell the crude oil. In fact, one lady in Singapore was just saying how ludicrous our economy is that they import our crude oil and they sell the finished product to us. They are making mockery of Nigeria in that particular video. So it's something that this government, if they take away, they can give to Nigeria after 1 year in office or after 2 years in office is to have a functional refinery. I think they've done very well in that regard.
Let's talk about this proposed strike a bit further. The Attorney General of the Federation, who by the way doubles as the Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, has written to the council, to the Nigeria Labour Congress, the organized labor, I should say, Femi Falana SN, to say, look, there's an order of courts delivered on the 15th of June, stopping labor from going on strike. Yes, labor wants to go on strike. Isn't that asking for trouble unnecessarily?
This one is a case of not trying to play the ostrich. This is an obvious problem that is there. So if you are giving court injunctions since June, this is September, we are going into October. What has government done to see that the labor will not even be considering going on strike? Those are the questions we should be asking. So it's not about threatening or trying to twist labor from going on strike. It's about doing what they need to be done. So okay, you've put court injunction. So if labor go on strike, what will you do? You arrest all the labor leaders and lock them up. So are we now under democratic military regime, or we are under military regime or civilian autocracy? So for me, what the Attorney General is doing is just like twisting the labor, and the labor, I think they are calling it bluff. They're calling it bluff in the sense that they've already made up their mind that they are going on strike, and the government doesn't give a concrete reason for them not to go on strike. I don't see that one, the strike abating. Of course, labor have gone on strike in this country before. They shut down the country for 5 days, for 7 days, and it's not something that we should allow to be happening at this particular moment, because the government is still trying to sit, and going on strike is something that will drag the whole country back. Just imagine everything is being shut down. Nobody's doing anything. Doesn't speak well for the country. So they should do the needful as it is now. Ensure that everything that needs to be done to ensure that these people don't go on strike, they do it. All the promises they've made in the past, they should start fulfilling it. And should start taking concrete steps to avoid this particular strike. And if they go on strike, the highest they can do is to arrest them and lock them up. You still have more labor leaders that are still going to rise up. That will even snowball to more crisis than what they are preparing. So the Attorney General and the Minister of Labor and all that, they should be very careful in handling these particular issues. They should know how to arrive at a middle point between themselves and labor. The thing about negotiation is that you shift your ground, I shift my ground, and we agree on a common ground to follow. And once we agree on this, it's expected that each of us play our own part. Not that by the time I agree with you, at the end of the day, you renege in your promise and start doing something else. Then that is what is causing this recurrent warning strike and all this threat for of strike and all that.
Some people argue that we should be fair to the President Bola Tinubu government, because according to them, this is the first time in recent history of Nigeria, at least since 1999, that we are seeing a president who is forthcoming with regards to government-labor relations, interactions, if you like. I mean, this is a president who personally attends meetings with the leadership of the organized labor, all in a bid, they say, to ensure that these issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Doesn't that sound like a good place to start with regards to addressing the demands of labor?
Yeah, as much as we commend the fact that they are meeting with labor, it's the constitutional right of the union for the government to meet with them, because all of them are part of the government. So the meeting with them is not the issue. It's sticking to the agreement and the resolution of that meeting that is causing all this problem. You just mentioned that a court injunction was in place around June. The thing is that, okay, before that court injunction, there was a conversation. Okay, that was a dialogue. That was a resolution that was met. So how far has government gone to keep to their own promise? So you and I cannot be having a dialogue on resolving issue, and after we arrive at a resolution, you will renege in it and you expect me to not to react. So that is what is happening. So it's not just enough for the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government to be attending to labor. It's fine, but sticking to the agreement and walking the talk is where the issue is.
Every time we talk about issues like this, all eyes are on the federal government. What should typically, or if you like, constitutionally, be the roles of the subnationals in situations like this?
You know, we operate, they are not operating through federalism as it is. Everybody still take instruction from the center. So that's what is leading to this. So every attention is focused on the center because that is where the directives comes from. So we're looking at devolution of power, you know, because there are certain limits at which the state government can act. There are certain issues that are on exclusive list, so they cannot wade into that matter. The issue of this kind of refinery now, for instance, importation of petroleum, forex exchange and everything is absolutely at the discretion of the federal government. So there's nothing the people at the state level can do about it. But that's not absorbing them of the fact that there's nothing they cannot do within their own state. Most states are generating revenue internally, and the question is, what are they doing with those revenues? You know, revenue leakage is very, very prominent in the states, where people, they generate revenue and you don't know where something is going into. So as the federal civil servants are suffering, the same way state civil services are suffering. And because Nigerians are yet to really understand the difference, they are quickly, easily led to believe that all your problem is coming from Abuja. So the people in the states need to realize that at their own small cluster, they should be able to hold their state governments accountable, their state House of Reps, House of Representative member, House of Assembly member, responsible, their local government responsible. All the money you are paying as a revenue or tickets at the marketplace, at your workshop and everything, should be start asking questions, what are they using it for? You know, for instance, now the government gave each of them, is it 5-point-something billion? For
5 billion to each of the states.
Palliative. What is the state itself bringing as their own palliative? Those are the questions that people are not asking their state government, because they come to Abuja every month and they share allocation. They generate revenue internally. What are they using all this money to do? These are the questions people should be asking them. So the states or the subnational are not helpless in this regard. If they can even play their own role the way it's supposed to be, there will be less pressure on the federal government.
In less than 48 hours, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is expected to address the nation as it's customary, which is, of course, on the commemoration of Nigeria's 63rd independence. Are you hopeful, or what might be his core points, his anchor points, as far as that address is concerned?
I think in his address now, he should be looking at his scorecard so far and the trajectory is taking the country to. Because from his last address, if you look at it critically up till now, most of the things they promised they are going to do, they are yet to do it. Insecurity is still escalating. The thing has just visited us in Abuja now, where they are picking people like chicken off the road. Not to talk of bandits that have ravaged the whole of northwest. Not of kidnapping that is all over the country. Not to talk of insecurity in the southeast. Not to talk of oil theft in the Niger Delta. So all these issues are something that it should be telling us that, okay, this is what we have achieved. Maybe there are certain things they have achieved that we have not seen. So we need that scorecard, and we need to see the next area that is going to tackle, namely the economy and namely the security. So in our address, you should be able to explain to us why the dollar is already, the Naira is already getting up to, in fact, above 1,000 now. You need to give us that explanation, why it's rising like that. I need to give us an explanation or hope on how it's going to revert it to something less than 1,000, because they met dollar at 650, 700, and in less than, it's not up to 6 months now, it has risen up to 1,000 plus. So what is government going to do to reverse that trend? Farmers cannot go to the farm again because of banditry and all that. What is this government with the security chief and all the security apparatus going to do to ensure that the farm is clear for farmers to return? Because the food crisis we are experiencing now is as a result of farmer inability to be in the farm to produce food that we want to eat. Then other foreign policies and all that, we need to really know what he has achieved since then and what he's going to achieve. For instance, now the Dubai issue now, where they say that
the visa ban has been lifted.
The visa ban has been lifted. They come back again and say it has not been lifted. So what are the foreign policies? There are many countries that have banned Nigeria from visiting the country, which doesn't speak well for the giant of Africa. And the issue of Japa syndrome, the rate at which people are traveling out of the country as if there's refugee crisis. What is this government going to do about it to stop that trend? Unemployment and different, these are the things we want to be hearing. Of course, we don't want to be hearing another campaign promises. We want to be hearing concrete steps that is going to be taken to ameliorate all this.
Today, actually, as it turns out, makes it exactly 4 months since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu got in the saddle.
Okay, today is 29th of
yes, exactly.
September.
Yes, so that's significant, quite frankly. But then, in the months running into the election, when he presented the Renewed Hope agenda, it looked very beautiful and well articulated. When we look at his achievement in these last 4 months, vis-a-vis that document proposal, if you like, is there any basis for commendation or to say Nigerians should be hopeful going forward?
Well, there's both positive and negative to that. Like the first positive like I can pick is the removal of fuel subsidy. But the negative aspect of that one is the management of that fuel subsidy removal. Okay, the subsidy has been removed now, so the money I've saved from the fuel subsidy, what is it being used for? Nobody is accounting for that. Okay, Renew Hope agenda, we're talking about the economy now. They've not been able to fix our exchange rate in such a way that it will even be beneficial for us. Now, dollar is 1,000 and something against the naira, and how do we survive in that kind of economy? Now we have a seat-bearing governor, we have an acting one that floated the naira. Now we have a substantive one. What is the personal agenda in the next 3 months to ensure that this trend is reversed and all that? Talking about border closure, importation and all those things. Because what this is happening now is that by the time the exchange rate is high, just as we experiencing now, it affects everything that we are doing. Cost of operation and all that. And before you know it, more and more small-scale industry will be shutting down because they cannot compete. So these are the things that we should be looking at. So his performance should be based on sticking to his Renewed Hope agenda, and let it not be a mere political promise and rhetoric that they're using getting into power. It's already there, so he should put those documents again and be looking at it one after the other and genuinely score himself to say, okay, yes, this place we've performed very well, this place we have not performed very well. There are several indices that he can use to guide that, because each and everything that he does there will make Nigeria to have hope or lost hope in his party and himself.
On a final note now, to wrap up. Now, your narrative, you mentioned the acting, former acting governor of the CBN, now the substantive one, Dr. Olayemi Cardoso and his team. They got screened and confirmed just a few days ago by the Senate Committee of the Whole, as they say. What are your expectations? Nigerians seem very hopeful, but if you followed the broadcast on that day, former governor of Edo State, now Senator Comrade Oshomole, Adams Oshomole, right, vehemently cautioned President Tinubu and indeed the government against multilateral institutions like the IMFs and the World Banks. For many people, that was a highlight for that entire process, of screening and ultimately confirmation. How should we approach this economy in ways that are radically different from what we had seen in the past?
It's a simple thing like what I've said before. IMF cannot just come and be dictating to you if you are a serious government.
So we need to get serious?
Yes, we need to get serious, because a situation whereby you import everything that you use, including toothpick, then why won't an IMF be playing your economy like a puppet? Can be dictating to you. So, for instance, now if the government can just be sincere enough to fix our refineries, that will start exporting petroleum products, you now see that we are now attracting the dollars that everybody is looking for. The same thing now as it is now, we are importing grains If you fly over the whole country, like we have arable land more than any other district. So we don't even have any business importing one cup of grain. Should be exporting it. So agriculture, the petroleum sector, if that can be fixed, then we can now be looking at the naira appreciating against the dollar. But if it's just by main pronouncement, it cannot happen. We need to import some. If we can't produce anything, we need to import all those things to use it.
Right.
You understand? So we shouldn't allow the IMF and other monetary control this thing using us as a market for other countries. Should be able to see how we can, revive our industries. When we revive our industry, we'll now start having a glimmer of hope that all these things will be reversing. Apart from that, there's nothing the central bank governor can do. Mere pronouncement will not change anything.
James Ugochukwu, election analyst and good governance advocate, want to say thank you to you for coming to join us this morning.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We're taking a quick break now, everyone. When we return, we'll take a look at papers, big headlines, more precisely, for you. Stay with us. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle, the ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Time to turn to the papers for you. We begin with the Punch this morning, looking at the big story. First, right on the front page of it, indefinite strike, labor protest as FG threatens union leaders with contempt charge. Threats won't deter us. We are no cowards, says TUC VP. Governors ask NLC to shelve strike. AGF says strike will be contempt of court. And then above the nameplate with a picture of Nigeria's president there, Bola Tinubu, the headline reads, academic record, Atiku asks courts to overrule Tinubu's objection. Telcos plan different tariffs for calls data in states. CBN will spend $3 billion loan to stabilize economy. That's according to the National Economic Council, presided over by the Vice President Kashif Shettima. They met yesterday, and Global Television will follow key highlights of their resolutions from that meeting for you. All right, let's come down to the foot of the page, front page of the Punch newspaper still. Umahi locks out workers, protesters cite hardship for lateness. You can find that story there on the Punch newspaper today. Ogun APC PDP confident as tribunal rules Saturday. That's tomorrow. So it's a spectacular weekend, particularly for those in the great state of Ogun. Okay. Osho accident. 5 Lautech students, driver burnt to death. Quite a pathetic story there. FG targets wealthy Nigerians in new tax drive. You can read up details of that on page 27 of the Punch newspaper. But then we have the Vanguard. Vanguard newspaper has 3 stories, 3 headlines above the nameplate. The first, top left corner, you find a picture of Edo State Governor just attached to it. It says, in quotation marks, to err is human, to forgive the Vincers of Basaki as he accepts Shaibu's apology. That's his deputy apologizing to him. The deputy had said a few days ago that he misses his governor and then apologized. Now the governor says to err is human, to forgive the vine, and he says he has accepted his two IC's apology. But again, that will be confirmed by how they relate in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Remember that the election in Edo State has been scheduled by INEC for 14th of September 2024. And Edo State must have a new governor at Osadebe Avenue. That's the official government house in Edo State, come 12th of November 2024. But there's a second headline, then there's a third one, just right above the nameplate of the Vanguard. Tribunal, Northern youths warned against interference in Kano politics. 63rd Independence Anniversary, FG declares Monday, October 2nd, public holiday. Independence lecture, your sacrifices won't be in vain, Shetima tells Nigerians. And then there's one big one just above the other three on top of the nameplate. Inflation, manufacturers unsold goods up 45.4% to 272 billion naira. That's according to a report from the NBS, that's the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. You'll find details on page 19 of today's issue of the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard also has a big story on the front of it. It says why you can't go on strike. FG tells NLC. TUC has more than a dozen riders. Says strike will be violation of subsisting court order. NEC appeals to labor to suspend planned strike, urges patience. Asks FG labor to continue negotiations at state level. We have no agreement with FG to suspend strike, NLC. So you have all of those headlines, those riders there. But then on the right corner, front page, Vanguard newspaper, Mohbad had no hand in singer's death. Naira Marley, there speaking on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper. Live well, be happy, death calls on us all. On page 13, says reflections on human flourishing in Nigeria. That's the third part in the series by Professor Laguda. Economic Security Summit. Southeast governors, leaders resolve to end insecurity. INEC laments as 241,715 Bayelsa, Kogi, Imo voters shun PVCs. Burkina Faso detains 4 officers after failed coup. All right, international friendlies. Pesero drops Sanusi Basi from Eagles squad. Those are headlines from the Vanguard newspaper. Okay, now let's look at Daily Times quickly. Just the big story on the front page of it. All right, NLC will call off proposed indefinite strike if, as according to an official there on page 4, you can read that up on page 4 of today's Daily Times newspaper. Scoffs at President's planned October 1 speech if it doesn't address issues. Nupeng bank workers in massive mobilization. Give Tinubu more time. That's NEC there, National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President. There's talking. Okay, but we need to look at just one more paper for you before we're done altogether, and that's the This Day newspaper. All right, on This Day newspaper, it says NNPP to Ganduje, your Tinubu's biggest mistake, says APC chair, morally bankrupt, liability to party. Big story says NEC urges labor to shelve planned strike. Nupeng threatens to halt fuel supply. AGF says proposed strike gross violation of court order. NLC, no agreement reached with FG to suspend planned industrial action. CSO activists vow to enforce sit at home. Insist phantom fuel subsidy removal was self-serving policy of economic slavery. Then above the nameplate, finally, Cardoso vows to address FX liquidity constraints, assures investors of friendly climate for business. Plans to unveil monetary policy agenda. We look forward to that because there's big talking points apparently. And that's a full circle here on the program today, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Agmofwegbe. Stay with Global Television. Have a great day ahead of you. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled as a strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.